Hi, welcome to the lecture on Chapter 4. Been a little later getting this up and running, but being an online class, not sure which way we want to take it as we get more into the programming. So let's go through some basics here. I'll take you through half the PowerPoint slides, because actually I think the textbook does a great job when explaining the example that we've got in the textbook, checking out the supply, the guitars and stuff like that, and how to process this. So let's just go through this stuff and go and see how you do. So we're going to talk about connecting to a MySQL database, how to handle PHP data objects, look at how to prepare and execute SQL statements. So basically we're going to talk about how do I open a database, how do I create a query, how do I send it, how do I get the data back, how do I process it. That's what this chapter is all about. So hopefully you're going to understand how to create the data object that connects to a MySQL database, look at PHP for handling, how do I handle exceptions, what happens when a mistake happens, an error happens, how to do certain SQL, how to execute, select, insert data, the things that we learned in the last chapter, how do we collate those, how to do a PHP array, how to process the way a numeric or a string indexes are used to access, different ways of gathering data from a database query, whether I'm getting just one line, one record, or if I'm getting everything. And then how do I, once I get the data out, how do I then process it? And that's what that for each statement is how do I get the data when I start doing this fetch all command and I say, get me all the data, now I want to process through to get just what I'm looking for. So let's look at the syntax for creating an object, pretty much creating a syntax for any object for any class. And basically it's called new, whatever the class name is, and then pass when the arguments are. So now if I wanted to create a new database object, so now I'm going to create, a PHP database object here. So I'm going to create new PDO, the datasite name, the username, and password. So, because you want to make sure you have security. When we saw last chapter where you had to get access and permissions to be able to read or write to a database, what you have to have a login and password. Well, this says I'm going to link to a particular database with this username, this password, and that's going to be my connection to that database. Now, this dataset name, what is it? Well, this is basically, what is the database name? So it is, I'm asking for what the host address is and what the database name that it's looking for. So to give you a rough idea here, we're doing what? I'm doing a MySQL, colon, host is what's our host? Our host is localhost. That's, at least for our class, it's a local host. If you were working on a different location, you'd put in that host's location. And then what's the database name? I want to get to this database machine, and I want to get to this particular database, My Guitar Shop 1. My username is, MGS user and password. Now that gives me, these populate the three different fields that we use, and you're going to see that a lot where we're going to create the data, store it in a variable. So we want to create a script or a select statement. We're going to create the text of that message, store it, and then use that in a command. So here we're going to create the database name, username, password, and then I'm going to execute the PDO statement. So then it's, like I said, based on this format here, you got new, the class name, the argument. So in this case, new PDO, database name, user, and password. You're getting new PDO, DSN, so we're going to put in, this is the whole path, username, and the password. And that creates the link to that database. It connects to it. Now, what happens if something happens? what happens if a problem happens when you're executing a command. Some programming languages have what they call a try-catch statement. Basically, a try is I am going to do something that might throw an exception, and then if an exception is caught, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? Now, syntax for executing a method of any object is you got what? You got the object name pointed to the method and then whatever arguments may be. So let's take an example here. So here we've got, here's a PDO exception. So I've got a try. So what am I doing? I am trying to connect to my database. And if it's successful, doesn't flag any errors, it's going to then print this label. If an error is encountered, it's now going to catch that error. So it's going to give me a PDO exception, and it's going to store that error message in this array, this pointer. And then to get the particular message, I'm going to say, hey, get message says, hey, this exception, put all the messages here, and this is the pointer to the particular message that I'm going to store in this variable. And then I'm going to say, hey, an occurred, blah, 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 and I want to print what that error message was so we can get that anything. So if I wanted to handle any type of exception, you basically see the same type of thing is what? I've got, this says PDO exception, but do something that handles an exception, catch it. You're going to be catch is going to be, what my exception is, what variable going to be. Then I'm going to get access to, use that as an index into the get message array, and store that in the error message parameter. And then, of course, then print what that error message may be. Now, how do I prepare, what, if I want to call a method for a PDO class, so how do I've got to pretty much, when I'm preparing this thing, I'm going to prepare a SQL statement. So the question is, I've got to do a couple of different things. I mean, I just can't say, I just can't execute a select statement and do what? So basically, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to, prepare the statement. So we saw an example earlier where we put the data, the database name in quotes or on the path name, use that as my parameter. That was basically, I'm preparing that system. So now I'm going to prepare an SQL statement with the prepare statement. I'm going to show you a couple examples here. Then I've got to say, I've got to associate a value to a particular parameter. And then, of course, once I've prepared it, bind the value, then I can execute that statement to the database. So let's do here we created a query. It's going to be select everything from products. So that is my query that I'm creating, store that variable. Now I'm going to prepare that query. So I'm going to call the database with that query and store that in statement. And then I'm going to say, hey, now go ahead and execute that and get the results, there. So here you got, if I wanted to, if you had a parameter, again, what do I have? I got my select statement that I did. So I got my select everything from products where the category ID is category ID 1. Again, I'm preparing my query. I'm binding that query to, storing that data, and then I'm executing the statement. So you're going to do these basic statements plus maybe one more to how do I get rid of it? And that would be a close. So what happens if I've got more than one method? So here's a couple of things we're going to. Now the fetch routine says, hey, I'm going to return the array of the next row. So you can do a fetch or a fetch all. Fetch gives me the next row, and then it's indexed either by a string index or a numeric index, either in the column name or the column position. So if I want to write the code that resulted in one row, So here I've created my query. I'm selecting from the product code, product name, list price from the products database where the product ID is set up to be whatever product ID was set to before. I created my query. I'm going to prepare my query. I'm going to bind that value. I'm going to execute it. I'm going to go get that data, and then I'm going to close my link to the database. So I'm going to that close cursor says close my query. I don't want to leave this open at this stage. I'm going to close that segment. So this will give me one row of a database table. Now, there are a couple of different things that if you want to use the string index or numeric index, you can pretty much see is I can use by product name, product codes. I can give it the variable name of that field to find that one. Or I can say, if I knew the structure, I could then say, do it numerically to give me the same. These give you the same values. This is probably a little bit more readable because I don't know what 0, 1, and 2 mean in a lot of cases. So now another method is I want to return everything, all the rows that are resulting. So again, if I do this select, so here fetch all returns everything. So this gave me the product state. You give me a pointer to an entire array that had everything in it. So that you saw the same structure where I prepare it, bind it, execute it, fetch it. In this case, I'm fetching everything, and then close the statement. But this gives me the results of 2 or more. Now the question is, if I've got more than one, how do I now go through and get what I'm looking for? And basically what we've got is a for loop. In this case, I got for each. And it says here, what do I got here? I've got for each of the products in the product table. I'm going to echo, and then I'm doing what? I'm doing the name lookup, the text lookup, so it's easy to read. So in the product table, I'm looking for product code, product name, and list price. So I'm going to echo all of those out. Now, this looks normally like a normal PHP, embedded PHP. I got my parentheses, opening and closing, looks great. Now, there's another process for each, or another syntax that is probably easier to understand, or at least because of if you've got a lot of embedded stuff on your web page, parentheses can get really confusing. So you can do for each, the same products as in products, colon, but then look at how it's ended. It says now I'm ending the end of for each. So I started for each, colon, and then I'm doing end of for each. So now let's start looking at different examples. Now, here we just gave you some basic structures, how to access the database, how to get data out of it, how to get one row or multiple rows out, and how to process it. Let's just look at an insert. So I'm going to insert a row in a database. So I'm setting my variables that I want to insert. So I've got category ID is going to 1, the code is going to be strat, Fender Stratocaster, and its price. I'm going to insert it into what? Into the products table. And I've got to specify what? I'm going to match the category ID, the product code, the name, the price, query, and the values I'm going to put to give it, because these are the fields in the table, these are the values I'm associating. So I'm going to associate, and you can tell by the colons here, I'm going to make, this is going to go into category ID, that's going to go into code, the names go there, and the price is going to go back over here. So I'm inserting into the products table this information. Now, you still got to do the prepare. So I'm getting ready to query the database. Now I'm going to associate binding off on each individual parameter, that value I want to store. I'm binding the raw data to those pieces. Then I'm going to execute the command and then close my link. That's just a very good, secure method. Now, if I want to do an update for the database, then associate the variables. Here's my update command. No different than what we did before. It's identical to how we did execute it. So I'm updating a row in the database. Do my prepare, bind my values. I'm doing the price and product ID, execute command, close my link to the interface. Same product, as far as if I'm doing a delete. Here's my product ID. Here's my query that I'm creating. So my product ID was 4. So what am I doing? I'm going to delete from products where any product ID equals 4. I'm going to delete. Here's my prepare. Here's my bind, execute, and close the link. So you can tell that I'm creating a query. I'm doing a prepare statement. I'm doing one or more bind variables. And then I'm executing. And then closing that cursor down. Now, the rest of this presentation, or the rest of the PowerPoint slides, goes into the code that we use, that is being used. So in this case, we're looking at the Chapter 4 Product Viewer database, and it goes through every single one of the routines from the index file all the way through. So it goes through how do I call the database, and maybe that's a thing I'll bring up here. Here's your database PFA. So now I'm going to say I'm going to include, let me go back. I think I should have used this. Here's the index PHP file, the start of the index, and it says I'm going to call, says I'm going to call this routine. So I must, before I can execute anything else, I must call this database. So I call database PHP. And here's our database PHP file, and what does it do? It did the same thing we did here. It created my query with the dataset name. It gave me username, password. It gave me, it says I'm going to try to do the connection. And if it fails, if I do the PDO exception, I'm now going to get the error message. So I'm going to take the message I caught, index into the get message routine, and then print that. So, of course, the question then becomes, well, what am I doing with it? There's my error message. Well, now I'm going to say, now I want to, based on how I want the error to be handled, I'm going to look at call the database error routine. So I go to database error routine, and it says, hey, I'm going to go through database errors encountered. Gives you a bunch of messages here, and then it says, hey, here's the, so I'm going to echo what that error message was. But basically you saw I'm going to call this PHP. So you saw two ways of how do I make a call to a different PHP file. You saw what? Went one too fast. Here you saw the require, it says I'm going to call that PHP database routine, and then you saw the include to call the database error PHP. Now, think of what this looks like the first time it's called. You get a titles, I got links to the different categories, and then I'm defaulting a start of guitars and then all the guitars and prices in that. So you can kind of see we probably have a couple of different methods going on here as far as how we're going to gather data. So here I've got it's my PHP continued file. So I started with this, called the database. I tried to, what am I doing here? I'm filtering the input. I'm saying I want to make sure that I've got a valid category. And if it does, then fine. Let's say if you didn't put a value in, what do I want to do? I want to default it to category 1 and print that one. Now, here I want to say I want to get. So what did the database do? It pre-populated the first record, the first row of information, so I'm not looping anything. So I created a query. It gives me all the categories, because you remember what the page looked like. It had all the categories listed off the side. So I'm just going to go get the row of the categories. One more. Selecting by products, category ID, and I'm going to sort it by what that product ID is. Prepare the query, bind the values, execute it, and then proceed to get all the categories. So that's the products. I'm sorry, here's the category 1. Yeah, here's just the first category name. Here's select of all the queries. And then here's all the products from a selected category. Now, let's look at how do I, now that I've populated all that stuff, how do I go through and loop through everything? Now, here's our, whoops. Here's my for each. So here's my categories as a category. I'm going to then, let's slide that out of the way. Category ID, echo what the category is. And I'm going to end that loop. And then I'm going to go through and say, hey, what is the table there? You know, echo the category name. So all of that. And then here's all the products we're going through. And then I won't go into the product list cage and the delete stuff, but you can tell that we've basically done the same basic thing. We've looked at, created my query, I've prepared the statement, I've called and execute, I've gathered the data, whether one row or everything, and then learned either I'm looping through, either I'm just printing what information in, or I'm using the for each loop to process through everything that's been returned. Now, the homework assignment you have is going to have you do some of this to fill in some of this processing. So just pay attention to the hint they gave you in the homework. So hopefully this helps. I need your feedback as to what's the best way to deliver this information. So I'm kind of struggling with this, so let me know what way works for you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.